Howdy, hey, Shasta College, Humanities 4, Film Studies. Welcome to Fright Night, Halloween. Why does Halloween have such a grip on us? In cinema and in literature, from Edgar Allan Poe to zombie movies to Halloween, we're fascinated by horror. What's the fascination? Are we so bored with our own lives we have to have more invented horror? Is there enough horror just trying to pay your bills, trying to not be injured when you go to the store, or the victim of somebody with a gun? Is there enough real life horror? Why do we seek out horror films? There's many reasons. What is your reasons? Do you like horror films? I know I asked you guys to make comments. I haven't looked at them yet. The discussion. What's your relationship to horror films? A lot of people say it makes them feel alive. It makes they like being scared. Why? Why do we like being scared? Why do you have to feel alive in order to be scared? It's interesting. But why do we do anything that's kind of risky? Not that horror films are risky, but they could give us nightmares. They could do things that confuse us, uh, mess our thinking up. I just saw a film recently called Vampire. Not the vampire you think of. It's a 1932 film. It was almost a silent film made in very expressionistic uh, manner. Um, Really creepy because they didn't glorify the vampire or made it any way sexy or cool. There was no blood in this thing. It was all psychological. And just having this vampire in the community was very sad by it. Well, because there has to be nightly murders for a vampire to keep living. So, why do we want that? Do we want that? Hang on a second. I'm going to just stop this for 1 second so I can let my cat out of the door because he's bugging me. Come on, all right. You want to go out? You gonna stay in or go out? I don't want you up on my computer. No, 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 no. I'm up here now. You're not coming over here. No. You're not coming over. I'm fighting off a very determined cat who wants to come under my computer screen. Um, so why does horror have such a grip on us, our imaginations? I just watched another film this week called Carnival of Souls, very low budget film. I think I told you about it already. Um, Once again, it's all psychological horror. It wasn't a lot of blood, but it was a woman who was supposedly cheated death and how she's being haunted because of that. And Alfred Hitchcock made his reputation on horror films. He made a lot of other films that had nothing to do with horror films. Um, John Carpenter, who made Halloween and Christine and so many other horror films, is his bread and butter. He likes, scaring people or likes to go on the dark side of life. Another movie of his called The Fog is the same way. Um, he put some creepy music with it. He put some creepy sound effects, and there you have it. You could get a lot away with a lot in horror. I mean, look at the Blair Witch Project. It was a film that came out 20 years ago. They called it found footage. It's all fake. Like someone found this old VHS tape in the woods of this supposedly group of people who found they think they found a witch in the woods. And it was truly kind of shocking and horrifying because it looked like it actually happened. It was all fake. But still, why do we like this? Why do we like envisioning ourselves up in the woods alone? Do you like to go up in the woods alone by yourself, spend a night in a cabin by yourself, no TV, no cell phone, nothing? Do you feel safe? What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of just our imaginations? Are we afraid of actual danger? There are no such things as ghouls and witches and ghosts, are there? We look at myth throughout the ages, and those elements have always been there and there. Shakespeare uses it. Macbeth starts off with Macbeth meeting those wicked sisters. Who are they? Are they supernatural? Some people call them the witches. That's not what they're referred to in the play, but that's what they're referred to in reviews and stuff. But they're the wicked sisters, and they seem to have supernatural powers of some sort. In Shakespeare's day, that was common. People actually did think that there were such things as witches and trolls and evil spirits living amongst us. In this country, we had the Salem witch trials. We actually executed women in Salem, back east, Massachusetts, because they were suspected of being witches. They executed them. They had real trials. So it wasn't been that long ago where we're a nation of people who believe possibly in these things. Just because we want to believe in it. Do we want to believe in it, or is there a need to believe in it? I think the question answers itself. We have some need to experience horror. That's why horror films, horror cinema throughout the history of cinema are so popular. And the first time we had cinema, the moving camera, they made a 2-minute horror film. It was the first one of the first things they ever did. Um, the 20s, there's several very effective horror films in the silent era. Nosferatu, which is a vampire story unlike anything you've ever seen. Um, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Um, Metropolis is kind of a sci-fi horror film. I mean, so horror has been in the cinema canon since the very beginning, and we're still putting it out. Look at Netflix. Look at Hulu. They all have ongoing, whether it's American Gothic horror stories or Game of Thrones is kind of a horror. It's a fantasy. There are no dragons, folks. There's horror in that. There's supernatural elements in these movies. And we've kind of come to accept them because what? We believe these elements exist. I think most people feel they don't, but they do leave the door open. I used to have, when I had in class, in the classroom classes, I used to ask people who here believes in ghosts. And about a third of the hands went up. Who here believes they're actually ghosts or they're just figments of our imagination? When you start breaking it down, seems to be an openness and a willingness to believe in something other than the world we're living in. another dimension, another sphere, another life that's different than our life, subterranean life. And so I think because we have those primordial fears, even though we're all living in sophisticated times, supposedly, those fears never really disappear. Now, the real horror now are school shootings and political corruption and wars in Russia and Ukraine. That's real horror, but it's not supernatural horror. There's just, or is it? I'm watching a movie right now called The Keep. And in the movie, the Nazis are occupying this weird old huge structure, kind of like a pyramid. And it's obviously something's evil in there. And and something bad's going to happen. Aren't Nazis bad enough? They're executing people right and left in this movie. They're the real horror. But in this movie, there's supposedly a spiritual horror that's even more powerful than the Nazis and their real horror. So the movie's very effective. Look at a movie like sci-fi movie like Alien, the first one. They're on a spaceship out in outer space, and they confront an alien that is really lethal and gestates inside a human body, which is a nightmare. But it's also a metaphor of giving birth. That's simply that. When they pitch that story in Hollywood, because you pitch your stories in Hollywood and they always say, okay, what's your story about? And can you say it in two sentences? And the guys who wrote it said, it's a haunted house in outer space. And the executives go, oh, that's interesting. That's possible. And that's exactly, look at the earlier Ridley Scott movie came out in 79 or thereabouts. I know they've had endless sequels, but this first one essentially is a horror movie set in outer space. It's a haunted. The spaceship is haunted by this creature that they can't see, and they only know how deadly it is, and it's really deadly, folks. Its blood is like acid, and it can melt through iron floors, and it has nothing. It could do a lot to a human body. Um, so it's a very powerful, palatable horror once they even see what it is. They don't know how to deal with it. Look how popular the vampire movies were. We have uh, TV series on vampires. We got the books on vampires. Anne Rice, who just died this year, wrote Interview with the Vampire. They just remade it. Um, we're fascinated by the undead. Look at The Walking Dead. Those are zombies, folks. Metaphor for what? Our dead end lives, or the fact that we're all zombies because we're on automatic pilot. We get our Starbucks every day. We go to Costco every day. We do the same things. We watch the same TV. We have the same boring conversations. I mean, maybe we're all zombies right now. Who's to say? What is living? And why are we so fascinated with dying? Because it's a mystery. We don't really know. We think we know, but we don't really know until you die. And you're not going to come back and tell everybody how it was or is. You're not coming back and telling anything. And so humans have this need to connect to loved ones that have died. And so we keep this this theory and this thought alive that possibly there is life after death, and it drives all these horror films. Maybe that's what we want. but we want it all to be nice, right? Heaven's supposed to be great, but what if it's not so great? And what if it's really complicated and people aren't happy? And what if they go the other place? Does the other place exist? A lot of people think it does. A movie like The Exorcist depends on you believing in Satan. Satan possesses a little 12-year-old child. And then we all know probably doesn't exist, but the movie is convincing. There's been real exorcism. Possibly it's mentally ill people, schizophrenia people, but that's another horror genre right there. Who's to say that's not driven by horror? Things we don't understand, things we don't see, things that go bump in the night. What's making that noise? Tonight is Halloween, folks. Now the kids are going to be out. Maybe they'll go out. I don't know if they go to parties anymore with their little costumes. There'll be Spider Man, whatever's popular now. The Joker, um, ghouls and goblins and witches and vampires. Some of it's cute. Some of it's actually supposed to be terrifying. People who go out as Mike Myers from the Halloween mask on. They're killers. They're posing as that's their costume. These things are out there. We embrace them. Okay, it's only one day a week, one day a year, but is it? They put on horror movies throughout the whole year. They release them in the summer when it's bright and sunny. Everything seems safe. But is anything really safe anymore? And that's what horror depends on, the unknown, the noise you cannot identify, the sound you can't identify, unless it's otherworldly. And so effective horror cinema captures that. What are your favorite horror films? I'll post a couple on YouTube this week, previews of my favorites or effective. What are yours? Anyway, I'm going to keep this short tonight because I know you guys all want to get out there and trick or treat. And I'll see you in a couple days and we'll move on from horror films, but they're always around us because maybe human race is its own form of horror and we have to deal with it all the time. Maybe. On that note, welcome to Fright Night. See you next time.